That's how women tell stories. All right. So if you're talking to a woman and you want to tell her a story, if you want to communicate it the best way possible, talk about the emotions you were feeling when the story was happening. Hey, what's up, guys? Dale Valor here for Modern Valor Dating. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is vastly underrated in game, and I think is super important when it comes to communicating who you are, your identity, the value that you bring to the table, your intrinsic values, and makes you just more of an interesting person. All right, and I'm happy to be doing this today with you guys because I am down in sunny Tampa, Florida. You know, I got the beach behind me and everything, and I'm happy to be doing it because Detroit's starting to get mad cold. So I'm happy to be here and being able to share this with you guys. But nonetheless, we're gonna hop into the top 5 tips on telling an awesome story. Let's get it. Number 1. Why should you be able to tell an awesome story? Well, here's the deal. You know, oftentimes I get asked, you know, how do you display your value? How do you display higher value without coming across as a braggart, you know, somebody who just, you know, hey, guess what I've got? Guess how much I make? Guess what I do? You know, instead of being like that, why is it good to be able to tell a story and things like that? Well, here's the reason. Because you can communicate who you are through your stories. In other words, if I could walk up to you and we're having a conversation and I'm like, guess what? I just made a deal that I made $35,000, right? You're gonna be like, who cares, man? You know, like, good for you, I guess, you know? And then I just keep the ball rolling. Guess how much I paid for these shoes? Guess where I went last week? Guess who I'm dating? You know, and just constantly just throwing out accomplishments and things like that. It's gonna get very obnoxious, very abrasive, and you're gonna start tuning me out and looking for a way out of that conversation, all right? However, if I tell you how this happened, man, check this out. So I did this deal last week. I made $35,000, but here, check this out. It's so crazy how this happened. So I was talking to this guy and, you know, I didn't know him, but, you know, it was somebody that was we had a friend, a mutual friend in common, and we got to talking and everything. It turns out that this particular guy is into game. He's part of the community, and I didn't even know it. And so we get to talking about it and everything, you know, and I'm telling him about this channel, and, you know, he's checking it out and everything. Turns out that he has a bunch of real estate that he needs to unload. And then, so, you know, the conversation shifted to that. You see what I'm saying? Like, that is much more engaging and entertaining, and it takes your mind places, things like that, rather than me being like, hey, I just made $35,000 last week. What'd you do, huh? You know, like, nobody wants to be around that guy. That's why it's good to be able to tell a story. It's good to be able to talk about your passions, what you're into, all that kind of thing via a story, rather than it just being an interview, right? So, all right, we're gonna hop into number 2. Let's go. Hey, listen, guys, just wanted to take a quick time out just to remind you, if you're getting value out of this channel, I know that you are, make sure you hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell, and please drop us a comment on any kind of video topic that you would like us to cover, or your thoughts on this video or any other, you know, so we're gonna hop right back into it. Let's get it. Number 2, have some stories ready to go. So what I mean by that is, you know, oftentimes when you're having conversations with people, you know, you can, if you're wanting to display higher value and things like that, you can shift the conversation the way that you want it to go. So if you have a good half dozen stories at your disposal that no matter what the conversation's talking about, you can kind of shift it to one of those stories based on what you're talking about, great. That's what you want to do, but you want to already have those stories pre-planned, you know, that you know when that kind of conversation comes up, you can always drop that story about the time you did this, or the time that this happened, or something like that. And see, here's the deal. If you know the stories that you want to embed into a conversation, then you are leading that conversation. You're the one that's taking it to where you want it to go. So now you can bounce that story into other things, other topics, just keep conversation rolling and keeping it interesting. So bear in mind, when you have stories ready to go, you don't have to have these huge, grandiose tales about the time that you rescued the president's daughter from certain doom, from a terrorist attack, and the time that, rescued a bunch of orphaned kids from a forest fire. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be something way over the top or anything like that. It needs to be things that are a part of your life, things that actually happen to you. And it doesn't have to be crazy over the top. The thing is, it just has to be something compelling. If you know how to tell a good story, and we're going to get into other tips in this video on how to do that. If you know how to weave together a good story, it doesn't matter. I could tell you an interesting story about me just walking to the gas station and back, all right? And then that's really all it is. Millions of people do similar things every day, but I can make it seem compelling, all right? So have stories ready to go. All right, we're gonna get to number 3. Let's go. Number 3, watch master storytellers that emulate how they deliver a story. So who is a master storyteller? Well, I would argue you want to watch stand-up comedians, not joke tellers, but guys who have a story that's going somewhere, that's leading to a point, that's leading to a punchline, things like that. A good example of that is Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle tells a very good story, even if it's not funny right when he's telling the story, all right? So watch what he does, his tonality, how he changes it, how he changes the way that he's talking depending on if he's imitating somebody talking to him, things like that. Watch his facial expressions. Watch the pacing of his words, right? His diction. Watch the way that he just weaves that story together. All right, that is masterful. That is a really good way of doing it. Chris Rock does a very good job of that too. So watching stand-up comedians is a really good way to be able to craft a story, put it together, and tell it in a very compelling way. All right, a way that evokes emotion. And ultimately, that's what you want to do. It's not about listing the facts of what happened. As men, that's what we tend to do. We just kind of list out what happened, the facts, but we never embed the emotion that's going on. That's how women tell stories. All right. So if you're talking to a woman and you want to tell her a story, if you want to communicate it the best way possible, talk about the emotions you were feeling when the story was happening. Okay. All right. We're going to hop into the next tip. Let's go. Number 4, embed emotion. See, we touched on that in the last tip. Okay. But now I'm going to really go a little bit deeper on that. So when you're embedding emotion, right, what you're doing is you're talking about the experience. You're not talking about what happened. All right. I mean, well, you are talking about what happened. You're really talking about both, but you're talking about what happened through the lens of the experience itself. Okay. That way it makes the story more colorful. It makes it more textured. It makes it just way more engaging. And it makes people want to listen to what it is that you have to say. In particular, if you're talking about a passion or a hobby or what you do for work, things like that, don't just flatly answer, like, in other words, if she's like, what do you like to do for fun? Don't just answer, oh, I like to go rock climbing. That becomes an interview. All right. Nobody likes to feel like they're on a job interview when they're having an interaction. All right. So instead of talking about just, oh, I like to go rock climbing, it's a lot of fun. I think it's good exercise too. It's just something that I like. Boring. All right. But if you talk about how you got into it, it's funny you should ask that because, here's the deal. When I was 13, we went to Denver on a family vacation. We went out to the mountains and stuff. And I just thought it was so beautiful. It just impacted me so deeply. It's just something I knew I always wanted as a part of my life to revisit, the Rockies and just whatever mountains I could go to. And, where we live, you know, we don't really have access to that. So, you know, I do take trips out there and things like that. But what I really like to do to kind of hone that skill and kind of bring me back to that time when I was 13 is just go rock climbing at the gym. You know, it makes me feel like a kid again. It just makes me feel alive. That's way more entertaining, way more interesting, and way more engaging than, oh, I like to go rock climbing. You know, that's just boring and lame. And I mean, and you could apply that to anything, any type of time that you feel like that you have to just give a flat line answer about something, what you do for work, you know, hobbies, passions, life goals, things like that, where you're just like, I do this, I work here. Anytime that you feel the need to just give a flat comment like that, that should be an indicator to tell you that you need to tell a story right then. So if you catch yourself doing that, just know you need to think of a good story for the next time, how to explain it, how to give the context of why it is you do what you do. All right, we're gonna hop into number 5. Let's get number 5. Practice those stories. All right, in an earlier tip, we talked about having some stories ready to go, right? So that being said, there's going to be times that you're going to want to deliver those stories, and you're going to want to deliver them well in the way that it should be told. All right. When you think of a stand-up comedian, like I said before, that tells a really good story, you don't think they practice that? You don't think that it's something that they haven't said to themselves a million times? What you can do is, with your friends and family and things like that, you can start practicing your storytelling skills by just, you know, doing it with them. Then once you start to be able to craft a story where you know the little like jokes that you're going to embed, the little poignant pauses and the tonality that you use to put emphasis on certain words and the emotion that you bring to that story, it makes it way, way more textured. All right. And if you have the thought in your head that that means that you're being fake, I would like to see how. These are things that have happened to you. You're communicating it the best way possible, and you're doing the person listening to this story a favor. Because believe me, I hear complaints all the time from women saying how guys don't know how to talk to them, and it's just lame and boring. You're doing them a favor by being able to deliver a great story. So listen, guys, what I want you to do is, we have a video on displaying higher value. You know, we touched on that earlier, and we broke it down and, you know, really went deep on it. We're linking that here. What I want you to do is check out that video. All right, it's going to tie these two concepts together. All right, so I will see you there.